a cohesive team. I thought that was a unicorn, a bit of an illusion.
Confusion is ugly, undermines teamwork and cohesion and kindness by its nature.
My first kick of the cat, if that's the phrase,
kick of the can.
was
Yeah, I hope you don't
can.
kick the cat. Don't kick the cat. We're animal lovers.
Welcome to the Serious Playfulness podcast, where we explore the work of building healthy, mission-driven organizations that don't suck the life out of you. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Stephanie. And if you secretly dream of a workplace that you actually want to go to, then you're in the right place. Let's get to work.
Today we are talking about the phenomenon of mild dysfunction. Mild dysfunction, and when should a leader address cohesion and clarity issues in his or her organization when it doesn't seem that bad? And what prompted this conversation is that as we talk to leaders and potential clients, we find sometimes the response is that things are okay. They're not falling apart, they're not on fire. And we wonder if A, is that true? And then B, is it actually more accurate to say that there is a lack of excellence, but we're just sort of numb to the fact that it's not that great because things aren't terrible. and and our invitation to go deeper in organizational health and teamwork and clarity kind of hits a bit of a wall there. Steph, let's talk about how, if you're a leader, how might you challenge your assumption that things are fine? What might be some areas to think about, some indications that maybe they aren't?
Yeah, I think what first comes to mind is a belief that I've held that any team dynamic is going to kind of suck. It's going to be a little bit lousy.
Uh-huh.
So when I found myself in such a team, I kind of thought we were on track. This was the norm. And therefore, I didn't aspire to a cohesive team because I thought that was a unicorn, a bit of an illusion that, oh yeah, a team can just be really great and functional. I didn't believe it. And so that'd be my first comment here is, do leaders believe their team can go from moderate or adequate to cohesive and really highly functional?
Interesting.
There's a likely bias there or idea there that I think a lot of leaders hold. I know I did.
It reminds me of, I worked with a leader once who was a fairly senior Catholic priest. And we asked a question in our session, talk about the best team you've ever been on. And his answer was, I've never been on one. He grew up not playing sports, for example, and had incredible talents in their other areas, but teamwork was not part of his experience. If that's the case, then I can see how when you're thinking about what does great teamwork look like, it's even more so kind of mystifying. And then you have people like you're describing where you have never really been on a great one and you just expect it's going to be, as you said, sucky, to use the technical term.
Yes, it's the professional term there. Yeah.
Yes.
But even reasonably functional. I thought that's a huge accomplishment. If the team is okay, we're doing pretty good. And I hear that from leaders lately, the sense of like, we're not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them will answer with a bit more description.
Yes.
Because I want to know, what does that look like exactly? Because maybe they're describing something that is actually pretty highly functioning.
Yes.
In which case, wonderful. You've done what a lot of leaders, struggle to do on their own, is to create a cohesive team. But sometimes we could use that label of pretty good to describe something quite poor without knowing it, because we don't know the quality of a team that is possible.
Yes, I've often likened our efforts of talking about the work as being a prophet of the promised land, describing a future reality that we say is possible, just like God had said it was possible to the Israelites, but you haven't actually known it before. Mm-hmm. And you therefore have to go on a kind of faith that it's possible if you've never heard about it before. But it can also sound kind of magical and mystical and kind of fake.
Yes. And then, so that's the first maybe obstacle, is the idea is it even real? Is it possible? And if it's possible, then maybe I'll strive to attain it. But the other element here that I think is happening with leaders who say, hey, we're doing pretty good, is almost an assumption that I will address this once it's bad. We're okay right now, so I won't address this. I'll wait till things are dysfunctional and then attend to it, and then attend to clarity and team health.
Yes.
And I don't know, over to you, Kyle. What's your experience there? Is that where most leaders are more motivated?
I think it's just like in every area of life, it's the rarer person who is proactive when there's a low degree of pain to work on
Mm.
something. That is what we all want. We all aspire to it because we know it's superior. It's a way of having way less stress because the issues are less painful upstream than they are downstream. But then there's the reality, a lot of us wait until later. The second reminder to pay the bill, or we get the engine light on the car indicating the car is past due for an oil change or something like that.
Or the doctor who says, now you need surgery to address what we could have handled with physio or something. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so when should, maybe this is obvious to you and I, but where's the level, the balance between preventing or maintaining organizational health and the value of that proactive work,
Yes.
as opposed to we put out those crisis fires because it was left unaddressed?
I think the ideal is you're continually monitoring it and working on it. And let's get a little more specific. Let's take the issue of confusion, which is an enemy to teamwork. Confusion kills cohesion. Confusion kills kindness. Confusion is ugly. But what if it's 10% confusion? For example, let's say you were to think through the critical clarity questions from the advantage model. Why do we exist? What do we do? How do we behave? How will we succeed? What's most important right now? And who must do what? Role clarity. And you find that as I think through those and think of my team, we're 90% clear. By the way, I like to add a follow-up question, which is your team clear? But is it also bought into those questions? That's another facet.
Mm.
And let's say your answer is we're 90% clear, we're 80% bought in. That probably won't be killing you, but it's going to be hurting you. So I would say to answer your question, if that's your case, that's the time to move. That's the time to act. Because in the area of clarity, 10% of confusion and 20% of weak buy-in to it, to the clarity, is definitely going to grow.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to grow. It's like a disease. It's going to eat away at the team cohesion because confusion undermines teamwork and cohesion and kindness by its nature. Now, how do you actually know when that is? I think it's an intuitive decision in terms of what does that 10% actually look like? How do you know that you're at 10%? It's a gut sense.
Mm.
If you're at 5, maybe you can wait a few months till your next 3 months later for an offsite. But if you're at 10 or more, I think you got to pay attention to it.
What would you suggest? Do you think a leader should ask their executive team some of those questions? Or so this is what's coming to mind. I was with a leader the other day and I mentioned clarity, organizational clarity, and
Mhm.
her response was, "Yeah, we updated the mission statement a couple years ago." And she
Mhm.
started looking for it.
Okay.
And I said, "Oh, interesting." I said, that's quite telling. I don't really care for mission statements because of that lack of clarity. It's not very useful. I haven't seen it very useful. And so to a leader who's not sure, how clear is our team? Maybe we're clear, we have a mission statement on the website and on the wall.
Yeah.
What should they do to test that?
One thing you could do is spend an hour together and say, I would like to ask everyone to write down the answers that you think we have to these questions right now,
Hmm.
and then collect those papers. And then,
Without using websites and other documents, like just off your memory,
yeah,
write
just
down
off
your
your memory.
answers.
That's
Yeah.
right. Someone could say, well, I kind of forgot. Oh, okay. But then collect them and then have someone write up the different answers on a flip chart or whiteboard and see what you get.
Yeah.
And let's say they're all the same, and we take out the one who forgot one of them just because of whatever, memory lapse, whatever. So you have, let's say, 5 why do we exist answers on a whiteboard. Then you say, and let's assume that they're the same. If they're not the same, that's a different issue, isn't it? Let's say they
Hmm.
are the same. Just say, rate your level of buy-in to this, maybe high, medium, low. And if there's anything under a high in one person, then you have a problem.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
haven't.
that's interesting. Maybe
Mhm.
they could do the same for team cohesion, asking, on the levels of vulnerability-based trust, on conflict and commitment and accountability. Like you could assess, how are we doing on this on a scale? What would you say our team is? Are we strong in these areas?
Yes.
And I mean, the exercise almost requires a level of trust. So if there is
True.
no trust, then that might be quite a flawed system. But a leader could ask and check in on those things. I would suspect that accountability, I think, is statistically the lowest for a lot of teams. And look at that, for a leader to look at that and say, wow, actually, 6 out of 8 of our leaders think we don't have healthy conflict.
Yes.
And that's a really good cue to address it.
Yes. Yeah, I think in other words, try to get a little more granular with your team, with your assessment of how it's doing. And now I recognize this takes courage because you're basically inviting uncomfortable feedback and an awareness, right? But yeah, I agree. So you could just literally map out the triangle of the 5 behaviors on a flip chart or whiteboard or whatever, and then ask each team member, give us a low, medium, high. Where would you put it? Low, medium, high. And then write them write them next to the slot in the model. And if you have anything under H, under high, then I think it would be fantastic because it could actually lead to a great conversation right there and a sense of how we're doing or not doing and see what comes from that.
Yeah. I think that just summarizes this idea that we don't need to wait till it's dysfunctional to address this. This is taking stock on, just like we would taking inventory on anything else. If an organization has inventory of their goods in the back, they take stock of that every year. This is quite a wise system to take stock of the team, which is just as integral to the organization as the inventory in the back office, to say this is how we're doing, and we want to keep a healthy inventory of it. We want to keep this working well so that the operations run smooth. I think
Yes.
that might be an interesting process for a leader.
Yes. Another way you could come at it is looking at the results of your organization. And I don't know if there's a magic number here. For example, if it's less than 10% growth in quality or quantity, then maybe that's not enough. That's probably a good place to start. If it's 2% or if you're declining, that
Yeah.
could be a good indication that there's something amiss.
Yeah.
And also, what about this one? If you might say, well, we don't ever lose anybody, so we're okay. In other
Uh-huh.
words, staff don't leave. People are content here. I suppose that could be fantastic, but you could also be misreading that, right, Steph?
Yeah. Yeah.
How,
No
how would
one
you
leaving.
know? Yeah, how would you know the difference, do you think?
Well, no one leaving could be a few things. It could be a sign of a healthy team. It could also be a sign of a team that has very poor accountability, and therefore those who are comfortable with that, comfortable maybe with low performance and no accountability, they would be very willing to stay.
Right.
And this actually is probably really important in this conversation, is what would a good team look like? Because yeah, no one leaving might be a sign of that, but the wrong people staying is a sign of a problem.
Yes, it is
And
because someone should be addressing the fact that they're the wrong people.
yeah,
This touches on the issue of both cultural fit and performance, obviously.
I
And
think what's connected to that, and I hear this too from leaders, is, well, I mentioned healthy conflict, and they say, oh, we get along fine. And again, I want to clarify that. What does this mean? Because no conflict is a sign of a problem, not a sign of a strength.
right,
And that's sometimes a new concept for leaders to get their head around, that, oh, I thought we were doing really well because there's no conflict. But we understand it, that this can be a symptom of, we're biting our tongue, we're maybe not saying what needs to be said, our decisions would be weakened by a team that never has conflict.
yes,
And yet some leaders could assess that team dynamic as a good sign.
yes. It's the artificial harmony trap.
Yeah.
That because we're not arguing, it must be okay. I
Hmm.
wrote a Substack article way back, and I called it the resentment signal.
Oh.
And it's a theory I have that I'm sure others have thought about this, and maybe I got it from others and don't even know it. But basically, if you have chronic resentment towards someone, that's a
Mm.
pretty good indication that something needs to happen.
Yeah.
And that if you, that's not a healthy relationship, even if you've done all that you can to say forgive the person if they've wronged you, but I guess my point is I would pay attention to that too. Is there, you might have people who are happy, but are you bugged by them? And there may be something there. There might not be, but there might be. Pay attention to resentment.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone secretly tolerating with resentment someone's behavior or
Yep.
performance. No one's addressing it because we're going to keep the peace, don't rock the boat.
Yes.
And yet a leader could assess that as we're doing pretty good.
True.
Yeah.
What about maybe one other area is that people like each other. My people like each other. They enjoy each other's company. I think the obvious place to go there is, but are you getting things done? Are you achieving things? And maybe just to add on to that, there's the meetings are, if your meetings are calm, that could be your idea that things are good. Meetings are calm and quick and efficient.
Yeah. And what I experience more so around meetings is if a meeting is boring, it's slow, and the calm is maybe part of that description as well, but certainly boring, it's a sign of a problem that we're likely not addressing the real question or the most important issue. And instead, we're going to talk about these other nice, soft topics that we can discuss, and no one's going to get too ruffled by them. And so I would suggest to leaders, if your meetings are pretty predictable and peaceful, you might want to just take stock of that. We're not saying every meeting should be the WWE uh, inside of a boardroom. We're not saying that,
Mhm.
but there should be a frequent willingness to have uncomfortable conversations. And if that doesn't happen, then there's likely a team health issue resting right underneath the surface for you.
That's right. Let's talk about the different degrees of pain. Let's say I'm that executive director or CEO and things are not really bad. They're not on fire. They're not falling apart. I'm not wholly dissatisfied in my work. And so my temptation when hearing about these ideas is, well, I don't want the pain of change because changing these things it's work, right? It's pain. It's uncomfortable. Tell me why I should do it anyway. Why bother
Well,
stirring the pot? Why bother stirring up dust?
yeah, I'll speak from my experience. I waited till there was pain. And here's what happened to me. I knew there were a few problems. We weren't great, but we were okay and results were okay. And I heard about organizational health
Mhm.
and I was running a nonprofit. So there wasn't, just lots of funds floating around to invest in this.
Sure.
So I bought the books and I thought, I'll give this, a college try. I'll do this myself.
Yeah.
And had marginal at best success at implementing any of this, really next to none.
Yeah.
And then the dynamic that was okay was increasingly not okay.
Okay.
And I waited to pain, full on the pain of a team
Yeah.
not doing well
Yeah.
until I was willing to pull the trigger on the investment, on the willingness to even admit, like as a leader, I don't have any other ideas. And
Yeah.
that's not a great position for a leader to be in. It wasn't my favorite
Yeah.
statement to make,
Yeah.
but that's where I was at.
Yeah.
Now, to your question, why would it be wise for a leader not to wait till then and address it earlier? I think it's a sign of a great leader. I think it's a sign of a humble person who knows their strengths and weaknesses.
Mm.
And just like we delegate, I don't know, the finances to the controller and the marketing to the marketing experts,
Mhm.
these are areas that as a leader for a healthy organization, I don't need to know all about it. And yet I think I felt embarrassed that when those areas were slipping inside of my organization, I didn't know how to attend to them.
Yes. That's a fascinating story. It takes a lot of discipline, a lot of courage and humility, like you said, in any level, right? To do this when things are on fire, also way upstream. And I remember someone who I was talking to, they didn't end up working with me. They ran a school. The principal said, he said something along these lines. He said, part of why I'm reserved or I'm hesitant is because I think that I should just be able to do this.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
theoretically, that's true, right? Theoretically, it's true. We also know that sometimes you need outside help to push you, to equip you, to encourage you to do the things that you've been avoiding doing. And even it's part of why we're believers in our work is that when you have to pay for something, it helps ensure that you take it seriously, doesn't it? We
Yeah.
wouldn't generally want to give our work away because someone's going to take it probably not seriously.
Yeah.
And that's not good for anybody.
And I think a lot of leaders, entrepreneurs for sure, leaders of different organizations, they have found themselves leading a team without really any formal training of how to do that. Think of the entrepreneur in particular who, loves his craft, that the demand for that craft expands. And so you bring on support, but you're an expert in the craft, not in a team. And yet the idea that because you're the head and you're the leader, you ought to know this. By the time I hired you, Kyle, I have a business degree. I was starting my MBA because I was looking for answers to this. And those systems did not give me these tools. That's very interesting to me when we think of learning these concepts that really debunks the idea that because I'm at the head, I should know, because it's not being taught.
Yes. Excellent.
Yeah.
Let's leave it there. We've had an interesting discussion on mild dysfunction and when should a leader address cohesion and clarity. And the bottom line is as soon as possible. And we've given some ideas on when you might know that there's an issue, even if it's not that obvious.
Yeah.
So
Don't
poke
wait
around.
till
Yeah.
don't wait till the pain is great. Tap into it sooner.
Yes, and also keep in mind that as pain gets worse, you might lose some good people without recognizing it. So there's a risk of that.
Yeah.
So yes, early warning detection, be proactive, all these beautiful things that we know from wisdom.
That's right.
Good to chat with you, Steph.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you for joining us on the Serious Playfulness podcast. If this episode gave you something to think about or try, please share it with someone else who needs to hear it.
And you can check us out at teamwork.ca, 2 E's in team.